Hello, basketball world. My name is Dimitri, and it's 3betterthan2 podcast. Today, I got a legend, Jim Russo. Both guests mentioned him. He's a mentor. He's a coach. He's a great guy. He's big in the basketball world in the state of Illinois. Let me introduce himself a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about him a little bit. So tell us about yourself.
My name is Jim Russo. I've been coaching basketball for about 40 years now. I started out coaching youth basketball and progressed up through Park District to high school girls, high school boys, AAU girls. And I'm currently working with full package girls basketball as a defensive coordinator, and I'm coaching at Concordia University in River Forest.
Yeah. So Jim was coaching more than 30 years. Right. I found out a little bit. You were head coach and from 91 to 2001 with AU national programs. Where you coached a lot of good athletes. How was that?
It was a real great opportunity for me. Any coach that has the opportunity to coach the level of talent that I did is gratified with the experience. I had a number of teams. Probably the best team I had was the 99 through 2001 team. They were Final Four in the nation in Division I girls basketball 3 years in a row. Of the 14 girls on that team, 12 of them wound up playing Division I basketball. I had 6 Nike All-Americans, 2 AAU All-Americans, a Parade All-American. And as I always like to say, it made me look like I knew what I was doing.
Hey, that's a great list. You were coach at Holy Cross boys basketball, right? How was that experience?
It was unique. I never planned to be a head coach. The guy that was the coach there, Dave Stein, had recruited my oldest son, Nick, to be a player, and came into the season, excuse me, and his assistant coach quit.
Oh, wow.
And he walked up and asked me and said, "Will you come and help?" And to be honest with you, it was a little bit above the level I was used to, but I waded in and learned. At the end of the season, he resigned. They hired another coach who the first day of practices quit. And I went from being an 8th grade coach a year and a half before that to a high school varsity coach just that quickly.
Yeah. Hey, that's how it happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you worked with Regina Dominican?
Yeah, I took some time. After that experience, they wanted a coach that was in the building to facilitate the growth of their program, which I am not a teacher.
Gotcha.
I'm an ASAP head coach. So I had been working AAU all through that, both boys and girls. And Bob Goldberg, who was the coach at Regina Dominican at the time, the story I was told went to Doug Bruno and said, "I need someone to teach my girls defense." And Doug said, "Well, if you can talk Jim Russo coming in the back end and coming high school ball, he would be your guy." And once again, I went there and I was Bob's associate head coach. And at the end of the season, after a difficulty with a parent, he quit. And he handed me the keys, and I wound up being the head coach at Regina Dominican. Where we were blessed. There was some talent when I got there. The girls were extremely responsive to the way I coached, and it was the way they played. And we were blessed. We went downstate and finished 3rd. Back then, it was only 2 classes, A and AA. Mm-hmm. So I wound up having to play against Candace Parker and Naperville Central in the state semifinal game, which we lost by 2 points. So we were very competitive. And I stayed at Regina for another 8 or 9 years after that. And then they wanted to go into a girls format, and they hired a coach, Kerry Durham, who was an alumni of Regina, to come in and coach the girls.
Got you. And then after that, you were at Trinity High School?
Yeah, I had retired. I was at home in my family room watching basketball, and I got a call from Mike Valenti, who had taken over that job that day as the head coach at Trinity. Mr. Stritzel had moved on and asked me if I would come out of retirement to help him. True. And blessed with talent, we wound up going downstate that year and finished 3rd. We just couldn't figure out how to handle Kathleen Doyle. So.
It sounds like a pattern.
I'm very lucky. I'm admitted I'm blessed.
What about after that? So recently you help in Concordia University.
Yeah.
Right. Tell me about that experience a little bit.
Yeah. Lauren Martin, who played for me on my last hustle team and played for me, went on and played at North Park, had a very nice career there, and came out and wanted to coach high school. So she came on with me at Regina as my assistant for a couple of years, and left the high school ranks and became the head coach at Concordia. And she's been asking me for a number of years if I would come and help. And finally I said, okay. Wasn't sure what John was going to do, my grandson, this year. I had a little bit of time, and so I took the plunge.
Got you. Let me read this out. Your GCAC Hall of Famer inductee, your IBCA Hall of Famer inductee, your GCAC Hall of Famer as a team and a coach, and as an individual. You were a coach of the year in 2003. And then, with all that, what motivates you now?
A couple things. Number one, I want to learn. And that's one of the reasons why I'm at Full Package. I'm to coach with you, or coach with Dylan, and coach with Steve and DJ Morris. I want to learn the new techniques. I feel that a coach can become stagnant if you don't learn. And I still have the love of the game. And if I felt if I was going to do it the right way, I might as well try to learn what's being taught nowadays. And it's different, particularly offensively, from the way I learned it as a coach. And I like kids. I enjoy kids.
Let me tell you, I admire your love for basketball. I know you can be a Wednesday night, a quarterfinal, 8th grade league, Catholic league, and you will be excited. And the game would be 12-9, and you're like, "Oh man, this is the greatest game, this year."
Yeah, I coach 6th grade girls right now at St. Paul Lacrosse, as well as coaching in high school.
Right.
We lost the championship game 13-12.
And that's amazing, because a lot of especially younger coach going out, they like NBA or nothing, or Division I or nothing, and then you in addition to just coaching and loving it, you're sharing it too. Like you're not afraid to mentor coaches, and you're not afraid to admit that you're still learning too, and that's great. And that love of the game shows always. And again, I admire that, because after more than 30 years of coaching, you see special in the little things and the little games. And like you said, a 6th grade, like you were excited about this 12-9 game or whatever it is, right? No, I see, and that's great. I wish a lot of coaches would have that love for the game. So with that being said, and because a long stretch of time of your coaching, tell me, you kind of mentioned it changes a little bit. Can you explain what's the biggest difference you think from maybe 90s to 2000s to 10s to now, or with people, with coaching, with teaching technique?
Wow, that's a lot. Start with the technique first, I think, particularly offensively. When we coached back in the 90s and 80s and 90s, you had your traditional drills, the chair at the free throw line, going around that, passing drills off the baseline. Nowadays, when I watch you guys work, you work on balance, you work on off-foot shooting, you work on the use of the body more within the shot development rather than the shot itself. And back then, you'd worry about rotation. Is it the finger, the last touch in the ball, or, heel, ball when you're turning the corner. Right. And now those techniques have been refined to use the body more effectively offensively. Strangely enough, defensively, I don't think it's changed a great deal. The technique, football, foot fire, all those drills which are used were used for those years to develop the foot speed and the quickness. They're still there. Some of the techniques have changed. I mean, defenses like the amoeba, Jimmy Boeheim's 2-3 zone with flex wings. Some of that stuff's become a little bit more complex over the years. Okay. But the biggest change, I think, from that structure point has been the offensive teaching.
Okay. What about language? What about verbiage? Does it change a lot, or?
Again, with the complexity of what's being taught, yes. I mean, you're talking more about balance. You're talking more about hips lower to the ground, lower core. That's stuff that you didn't really talk about back in the 90s. you would tell your players to get low, but now it's defined on how are you doing that. You're lowering your core. For instance, you're going low. You're not bending from the waist. You're lowering yourself from the hips down. That terminology has changed. Yes, it has.
Because I feel like, even before, when I was learning, like 20 years ago, right, 15 years ago, it was 1-2 layup, and if it's a different foot, it's a no.
Right.
And then if you're not jumping off 2 feet, it's a big problem. And there's no steps through and reverse pivots and in the footwork, it changed it a little bit.
But it has a great deal, particularly on layups. And then you bring that up, watching, and for instance, watching you or Dylan or DJ coach, you'll go down, and again, you have the arm lift and the knee, but now you're switching hands. You're teaching players how to, go to the left, use the inside hand, use an outside hand, learn how to shoot off the wrong foot if that's what I think what's being taught more now, excuse me, is the exception. How do we deal with the ball in a presentation when what we're used to doing isn't there? You go in for your traditional layup, well, it's not there. Now, how do we deal with that? Back in the old days, you'd bring the ball back out or you'd turn it over. Now, players are being taught, let's switch hands, okay? Let's turn our hips, let's turn our shoulders a little bit more. It's a little bit more refined, I think, on the offensive end.
Do you think it's because defense got better, or why do you think that?
Well, I think the athlete of today is a different athlete than the athlete of the 19.
I agree.
I mean, the kids today are quicker, they're longer. In some cases, they're more schooled on where they should go defensively. As a result, it's teaching the offensive player how to adjust to what's there. And I think also the influence of what you guys teach based on what they watch on television. More and more kids now, I mean, you put on the NBA channel, you can watch NBA games all day long. You can see what the great players are doing. And as a result, kids see that application, and then you guys are teaching.
I believe the best finisher in a game, usually like a smaller guard, because they have to move around and they are very unorthodox. They go off the backboard, but super high, like Kyrie, or they not use the backboard sometimes when we're kind of being taught, like, hey, go off the backboard on a regular layup. But then if defender waiting for you, how do you, like you said, switch to the hands? And they're very unorthodox. And I do have a theory that all the science becomes art. So like we know scientifically, like, hey, that's a good layup. But then because of defense or size or athleticism, it becomes art. And now you're artists.
But we don't want to waste that opportunity. Now we need that creativity to get the ball into the basket.
That's a great point. Let me ask about defense, since you are big on defense and you're defensive coordinator. It used to be, for example, screens. Like the coaches would hate switching because they thought it was just an easy bailout, right? But to those coaches, sometimes I say, hey, you ever play against a player who set good screens? Like sometimes it's impossible. You're just getting exposed every possession, right? So you have to play different ways. What do you think about that? Like, what is defense in addition to zones, just a man-to-man or maybe screen defense? Are there any changes?
For me, I'm a traditionalist. I never believed in switching. I never did. I mean, die me and hang me up the dang. I never believed in switches, but it's the way of the game now, and I think you need to teach it. But I think in order to teach defense, you need to go back. And this is what I think about defense in this day and age. Maybe offense has progressed, and it has, and we just identified how it has, but defense is still the fundamental.
Yes.
You need to get your head over the ball. You need to get low. You need to communicate. You need to move your feet. You need to not reach with your hands. This is how we play defense. You need to, the biggest thing with defense when I'm teaching it nowadays is for kids to overcome their fear of failure. If you don't get up on the person you're guarding, you're not going to be an effective defender. So how do we build on that? Where we go back to another phase where we say our conditioning, our foot fire, our running, our karaoke drills, all that gets us in the mind that our feet are ready to go where our head tells us they need to be. But teaching that fear of failure, teaching kids to get up close, is paramount in any defense, whether it's a switching, particularly so in switching defenses, more so in a man-to-man. I'm a big believer in third person through. I believe in teaching kids how to step back, rip people through in order to not have to switch. But
like a tag person?
It's a tag. Yeah. So we used to teach it where the screener's defender would follow, the ball handler's defender would step back, literally grab them by the jersey, rip them through, and then return to that position. So now you're there. Now, with the screen and roll offenses of today, it's not effective. You need to have the screener's defender be just as tight up on the ball as the ball handler's defender. And in order to do that, then now you're in a position. Now you're gonna chest it up. Are you gonna double it? What are you gonna do when that screen comes?
Right.
Make your rules and how you want to handle it. But that all comes from confidence in your feet, being aware of what's going on around you, communication with your teammate, and above all, the desire to defend.
I do agree that defense is a very high percentage of desire versus technique.
Absolutely.
There is some techniques where you can hide maybe your speed and lean forward and use your arms better and anticipate. Sounds like you believer of pressure on the ball.
Absolutely.
And a hard hedge with a big, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to do that. A couple of things I teach to kids. One of them is that I would always thought that offensive players are taught to attack the lead foot of the defender. So we work on balance. We work on a false lead foot. We want to let the defender know, the offensive player know, there's my lead foot, but that's not where I'm at.
Right.
Go ahead, attack it, because I'm ready to go. My balance is on my other foot. I'm going to slide where you are. I also teach the use of a drag hand, either stationary or movable drag hand. When I'm closing out on players, if the player is dribbling with their right, I'm closing out with my left, because as they go to cross, I'm bringing my hand down. Those are some of the techniques that we taught back then, which are still applicable now, but they're just basically not so much in a team concept, but an individual. You're guarding somebody one-on-one on the perimeter. And again, that comes from having confidence to play them tight.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Every game have closeouts, right? Yeah. So I teach closeout. If it's a right-hander, you go with left hand on a shot lineup, right?
The shot lines up, but the other hand's ready for the pop. And that's where you go.
I get you. Tell me this. I believe that, let's say when you do switch, it makes other players to guard other people. And I feel like it's part of development. If you want to be a wing who wants to be a guard, a big who wants to be a wing, or maybe a guard who's not as good defender, it challenges them, because if you don't switch and you can always hide the person on a weak defender on a weakest person, they can get stuck in that position. And then again, for high school season, that's a strategy. But for development, for AAU, where we want every player to become better defender, I feel like that challenges them too. So for me, just part of development, I feel like sometimes switching or guard to guard or even big to guard helps, especially if you have a shot clock, which some circuits we do now. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the things I believe in teaching all of my players is that, first of all, one of the major big changes I've seen is that all 5 players on the floor now can post up. And particularly with a 5-out offensive look or a 4-out 1-in with a release, you're going to have a guard posting up. So the number one thing I believe in that regard is I have to teach all of my players how to deny the post. When you have 2 heels sitting in front of you, that's there for a reason. As soon as they're there, now what are we doing? We're quartering up and around. We're putting our leg over and hand up. So even if the player I'm guarding is 6'7" and I'm 5'7", my hand can be in his vision line and my leg can be on the wrap here, so I can move around that. That's the number one thing I like to teach all of my kids, is that everybody has to know how to defend a post up. And as a result of that, with switches like that, sometimes we can negate it and rotate back after one revolution to get back where we belong. If I can delay the action of the game by simply showing a defense to somebody that's bigger with a smaller guard on them.
I love that you lose, like you using that verbiage, again, language, like 2 heels in front, 3 quarters. It's pretty good. It's very simple, but it's those trigger words that you can get off the bench loud and clear, and the players remember it. If it's like, hey, 2 heels in front, doesn't mean they have to sit on their knee, in front, or like you mentioned a lot of them, but I really like that. Where did this come from? How do you Is it?
It's just, I don't know where I heard it. I'm not going to take responsibility that I coined them myself. I've seen them in different places and heard them. It's just like the old days, when football with a wide receiver, if you can see both their numbers from the ball, stuff like that. It wasn't original, but again, it's keys for kids like that. It's like we talk about screens. If you're in a zone and somebody's standing next to you, they're there for a reason. They're not coming to say hello. They're there for a reason. Understand what's going on in the game, and understand when those heels are there. That's your key. As soon as that second foot comes down, you're on the move because they're posting you up. They're trying to use you, and you get a little bit more technique. Are they right-handed? Are they left-handed? And stuff. But right now, what I believe the defense in the half court is in 3 to 5 second increments. 3 seconds usually, 1, 2, 3, and then the ball's gone. Okay, so they're not going to hold the ball more than 3 seconds, try to get the ball into the post. If not there, if you show that, maybe you're going to force the offense to rotate the ball to a different direction. At the same time, if that holds up, now you can bring your help as a man. Just give me 3 to 5. That's all I'm asking for.
Can you explain that a little bit more about increments of defense? How do you break that? And
the average ball handler, if you watch a game, the average ball handler in a movement will take the ball in less than 3 seconds. It's going to be gone. They're going to hold it and dribble. And 3 seconds is a long time to dribble the ball. They're going to make them move. They're going to pass. They're going to shoot, whatever they're going to do. So now you need to be up in that. Okay. That's your 3 seconds of fame right there in that little microcosm. You're going to make that offensive player do what you want him to do or her to do. And then the next pass is going to go, and particularly in view of a shot clock. Now you're going to have limited possessions. So you need to lock that up for that period of time. And if you waste it, then you've lost your opportunity. So hard and tense, 3 seconds on the button up.
And we talk about half court defense, right? It's not a transition.
Exactly.
It's not
exactly.
And then it's on average, right? Like some teams would have a point guard and he would hold until something going on, or some teams move fast and
But on the average, in a flowing offense, it's going to be 3 to 5 seconds before the ball is gone.
That's an interesting way to see it.
That's how I see it.
And I never did, and I can see that. And that's why defensively, like too, on rotation, like, hey, give me 5 second increments. Go hard like on this tag, let's say, right, on a roll, and then after they make a decision, now it's a new kind of mini possession in a possession. No, I like it. I never thought of that concept. That's interesting. How do you come up with that?
It's just something I've seen over the years, watching a lot of film, watching a lot of games. A student, I've had some help. Years ago, when I coached at Holy Cross, we went down to Southern Indiana University for a week, and I had the opportunity to spend time with Bruce Pearl, the head coach of the University of Auburn, and his assistant, Rick Insel. And his second assistant was Reno Davis, who is Tom Davis, University of Iowa. That was his son.
Okay.
And for instance, the press I use, which is the Iowa press, it's a 1-2-2 trap the first pass take where the inbounder was designed by Reno Davis and his dad. And then in conversations with coaches like that, you pick up things like that, their philosophies on that. How do they lock it up? And again, a defense like the Iowa press, it's 2 to 3 seconds lock up. If it's not there, it's a one and done. You got to get back. So you play the game hard in those increments.
Got you. Yeah. Recently, something like that. I watched Texas A&M, and they dominant one on the made baskets into man.
Yep.
And like you said, you learn a lot. You mentioned a few names like Bob Goldberg, Bruce Pearl, Doug Bruno. What are the coaches that inspired you, or you learned maybe from somebody?
Throughout the course, coaches I admired Gene Pingatore at St. Joe's. His offense and his defense were geared towards the game and not his individual players. They played hard. It didn't matter whether you're coaching Rob Walls or Isaiah Thomas. They coached them all the same way. I took a lot of respect for that, the way he handled the games. On the women's side, coaches that I've admired, Tanya Johnson, high school wise, Terry Rogers at New Trier. Coaches who teach the game the right way, things I learned from them, that are demeanor on the court. From Tanya Johnson, I learned a terrific fire for the game, no matter what. I learned from college coaches. I was a big fan of Dick Bennett's at Virginia. Absolutely phenomenal defensive program. His teams didn't matter if they beat you 50-49. It didn't matter. They were still going to beat you with defense, and that's how they played it.
You kind of jump from boys and girls programs. What is it a difference? Can you learn from one to another and apply it, or there's some gaps?
Many people have asked me why of the differences between the two. In my opinion, it's kind of a simple thing. Most boys teams rely on athleticism. And if you give them an offense or a set, this would be a matter of time before somebody's going to say, wait a minute, if I just make a back cut here,
right.
a little circle.
Cheat the system, right?
Exactly. Where most of the good girls teams I've had, you give them an offense and they'll run it through. I mean, and girls mature faster than boys do, in my opinion, athletically, maybe mentally, not so much physically, but mentally. And as a result, they'll be more studious and they'll be more attentive to the X's and O's. Or again, a boys team the mitigating factor will be their athleticism. To me, my coaching style, what it is, it's worked better for me. Although I had success with boys with good teams, Coach, you're as good as the players who strap them up for you. We have the right philosophies, but they got to execute what it's their
on the highest level.
Yes, exactly. But no, the girls, for me, it's just worked out better. The motivation's been easier, and again, I've been blessed with some talented teams.
Gotcha. Did anybody influence you in your coaching? Like, did you? Maybe you have to switch up something or change something.
Oh, I learn stuff all the time. I've learned offensively. I've learned from DJ Morris, just what I teach my kids. Try to teach my kids. I certainly can't demonstrate the way he does. I have made a basket in a while. So, I like watching your teams. The teams play hard. They play real hard. That's an intensity that you draw. I learn from old coaches all the time. I'm not a biblical person, but I believe the old statement that everyone is my equal, that I can learn something from someone.
Got you. Well, since we're talking about coaches and mentoring, if you have a chance to be an assistant coach right now, who would you be assistant to?
Well, it depends on what level.
Whatever you want.
Oh, well. On the women's high school, I would like to work with Gino Oriema. I like what he does. The opportunity to meet him a couple times. He's a very personable guy. I would like to see how he manages the egos of the kids that are on his team in a practice and game application, because he has so many star players.
I feel like he mentioned it a little bit, that in a recruiting process, they try to find out who the people are, and even though they're really good players, they care about others. So I feel like he's been talking about that, how already coming in they have a little edge because those people who are really good, right, know how to sacrifice because they did that before.
Yeah, he alludes to the fact that he looks for kids who are willing to be selfless when it comes when it's important. Right. A case in point there is AZ Fudd, who is on his team right now, and she came in as a National Player of the Year, but came into a situation where Paige Beckers was already there.
Yeah.
And so how do you get a girl with that kind of national reputation and expectation to buy into being what in some cases might be considered second fiddle? But it worked, and he's got a national championship. On the boys, on the men's side, coaching wise, I thought Greg Popovich was awesome, the way he handled his teams. I like Steve Kerr. I think he has a lot of Phil Jackson in him. I would love to have worked with Phil Jackson. People that I know of that talked to him said is almost a philosophical coaching.
Yeah, those are like a high psychology coaches.
Exactly. In girls' high school side, there's a couple of coaches here. I would have enjoyed working with Terry, I think. And I think that Ben Berg would be an interesting guy to work with.
No, Ben and Terry, they mentor a lot of coaches.
Yeah.
And they're great. Let me jump a little bit to the other side. I just want to ask you this, and then I always have that question for the guests because it helps me or audience to understand you better. What is a book character or movie character or anybody that you kind of he kind of, like you, and why?
I covered all the cartoons right away. I don't know. Maybe Casper the Friendly Ghost, somebody who is just outgoing and just I try to be.
That's interesting. I can see that.
Just
I cannot see through you though.
well, but yeah, I mean, he's just always got I try to be happy wherever I go. I bring my music with me when I go to practice.
Yeah.
And there's times for me to be intense, obviously, and to try to teach, but I try to be outgoing and happy.
That's pretty cool. Tell me this: when you like close your eyes, what is the first basketball thought that come in mind?
Having the opportunity to coach my kids.
Yeah.
I was blessed to be able to coach 2 of them in high school.
Nice. How was tell me more about their careers.
Nicholas, my older son, was an accomplished athlete coming out of 8th grade. He had the growth spurt had already started. He was 6'1", about 160 pounds, 170 pounds. He could throw a football 60 yards. He got recruited by Holy Cross High School to play football. But he was also a pretty good basketball player. And I coached him all the way through, started coaching him when he was 5 years old. And I coached him through Park District in grade school. And then in high school, I wound up coaching him until his junior year when I moved on. One of the funniest stories I relay this story to people about the ride home with kids. And this is a true story. We're coming home after a game in high school, and my wife was in the car with me, and I was being a typical jerk father coach who was blaming everything. And he looked at me with a straight face and he said, "I didn't kill Abe Lincoln either. I'm not responsible for everything that's gone wrong here." And I'm like, maybe that was the lesson I learned a little bit early on.
Right.
The car ride home needs to be handled properly, particularly not only if you're just a parent watching your kid, but now if you're coaching them. If the team wins or team loses, it's not all his fault or her fault. So by the time I got to coach my daughter, I was a little bit better than that, I hope.
That's good.
And Libby played for me all 4 years that she was at Regina. She had an opportunity to play Division III ball. She got up to Ripon College in Wisconsin, and a week and a half after practice started, she called me and said, "I want to join a sorority." And I said, "Have fun." She said, "But that means I have to quit basketball." And I said, "Well, I'm okay." She said, "Are you okay with that?" I said, "Well, to be honest with you, if you can find a college to continue to give you the same amount of financial aid they gave you, that's fine with me."
Right.
And she did, and it stayed there. And so I had a chance to coach both of them. And I think any coach should have the blessing to coach their kids. It's an honor.
That's pretty cool. That's a good story. Since we talk about that and parenting, what would your advice would be to parents now, especially? And I feel like it's a big problem in high school or AAU. What would your advice be to parents? Since you said you figured out early that it's a little different.
I think it'd be a couple things, Coach. I think number one would be realistic in what your child is and what they're doing. Encourage them to have fun. Because if they're not having fun, there's no reason for them to be doing it. Again, I go back to being realistic insofar as what our playing times, what our expectations. Make it an enjoyable experience for both of you. And when it comes to, particularly if your child is blessed with being maybe an above average player, tune out the noise, tune out the stuff around you, tune out everybody telling you how good he or she is and they're a D3 or they're a D2 or whatever. Be realistic in what you're doing. And the last thing I would tell them is, unless they have a reason not to do so, respect their coaches, respect their high school coaches, respect their coaches, because for the most part, they're not out there to hurt you or hurt their kid. They're trying to do the best job they can too. So just be reasonable
with the small resources they have.
Yeah, exactly. Be reasonable in your expectation and enjoy the game with your kids.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of time. You ever heard the rule of third, where a third of your time have to be fun and enjoyable, third of the time have to be really hard, where almost on the edge of quit, and then third of the time it has to be challenging. And if it's off balance a little bit,
Right.
then
I've never heard of that.
You don't. Yeah.
Now you're talking from a player's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Olympic people,
Right.
Participants usually have that rule of third. So if you never have fun, right? If that's screwed and you always challenge and you're always struggling, then like you said, why would you do that?
Right.
Or if you always easy and have fun and it's always fun, then you're not being challenged well enough. What do you think about that?
That's a good point. I think because, again, to achieve excellence at anything, you have to have that balance. You're not going to continue to do it if you don't love it.
Right.
By the same token, you're doing it if you're at that level to get better at it.
Right.
So you need to be challenged, and understanding that in that challenging process, you're going to become frustrated. It's not every day, not every shot, not every situation is going to go your way.
Yeah. I feel like with social media too nowadays, like you said, comparison is a thief of joy, and you don't want to look and compare your journey to others. But I feel like with social media, what would your suggestion should be? Because, for us, like, oh, just don't look at it. But what do you think? Is there anything you can suggest?
It's hard. I mean, because it is in every avenue. Everything you do is Snapchat, pictures,
rankings,
Instagram, exactly, rankings, and I don't know. I mean, you can't do away from them, but it's like anything else in your life, I guess, that can be bad. You have to temper it. You have to understand that it's there, but it can't be your guiding light.
Yeah.
It has to be, it's part of your life, but it's a light in your life. It's not your guiding light. Your guiding light still needs to be yourself and those that are close to you, your parents and your faith. Those are the things that guide you, not what they say about around you.
Right. You want to fail to pillars that they're going to stand there, you know? Yeah, I agree. That's a good advice. Tell me, when was the last time you played?
You had to take the ball out of the basket back then. That didn't have a hole in the bottom. You had to take it out. That's about when I did it.
No. Beach baskets?
I played in high school in the late 60s, early 70s. I always used to tell my kids that the only thing I could ever do was shoot free throws, and I never got in the game long enough to get fouled. So it was... Now, competitively, probably in the late 60s or early 70s.
What about men's league, or showing a drill or anything? Or
no, Coach, I'm not a really good player. Trust me. I mean, it's I would be the guy that brought in only if a lot of guys twisted their ankles. That's how I would get in the game. But no, and maybe because I didn't play a lot, but I loved it, I started to learn about it. I got books out of the library, little fictional stories about kids and heroes. And that's probably why Hoosiers is my favorite movie of all time about basketball, because I love the game. I love to watch it. I love to think it. And, but no, as a player, I made a real good captain.
Funny story. I moved to Indianapolis after college, and they brought me, to the Butler University, and they say, hey, this is famous Hoosier Arena. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
They're like, you don't know the movie? I said, no, I didn't watch the movie. So they all shamed me, and then like that night they made me watch Hoosier.
It's on my bucket list. You can go to the actual gym that they played in down in Knightsburg.
Like the old high school.
Yeah, you can still go there and play games.
Is the glass still broken from the?
I don't know if nobody tore it. No. But you still have the corn guy on the wall and everything. You can go there. It's on my bucket list. I've never been there, but that's, for me, it's just the love of the game itself. But as a player, no, that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I got you. Tell me, with all the years of coaching and being around basketball, I always kind of ask about development and winning, and did it change, and how did it change, if it did, and what are your thoughts about, again, development and winning? And you've been a high school coach and a college coach and AU coach. Is there a difference there? And you can elaborate.
No, there is, I think. And Dylan Sells brought up a point when we were talking about, for instance, coaching high school. And I thought he made a good point. And I've had the same thought that, for instance, coaching high school is a community. I mean, there's nothing of all the successes that I've been blessed to have, and I have had a few, nothing meant more to me than the successes I had as a high school coach. Because you're there, you represent a community. There's so much of a feeling of involvement. I finished in the Final Four in the country 3 years in a row in AAU, and you're playing in front of college coaches, and the experience you had with the players, the individual players, was great. But it's almost like work. I don't know how to describe it.
You know what? I agree with you, and maybe I can help you with that, because those kids grow together, play together for 10, 11 years, and they play against kids who they grow up with. And then, like you said, a lot of times if you just go to alumni night or something, they're like, oh, remember in a 94 we beat Fram by 2, and they're like, take that, or just example. And it's a part of culture and part of experience of being high school and play varsity sport, and just like you said, it brings community together.
AAU, again, it's fine. It was an accomplishment. As the girls that I had play for me were blessed to have college opportunities, and they're great kids. And I talk to some of them now. They're married, they have kids. Some of them are coaching, some are not. So the different levels bring you different feelings of, and I think every coach that wins should lose, because I think part of coaching, you need to learn how to win as well as you need to learn how to lose.
Of course.
And understanding that a losing season can be as gratifying to you as a coach as a winning season. If you see the development of kids, if you see the camaraderie that you allude to that comes together. I wouldn't want to go 0-32, but I had teams at Regina that we won 9 games in the regular season, but we made it to the Sweet 16 because we grew as a team during the year. And those teams were, to me, just as accomplished in my heart as the teams that won 28 games and went downstate. So I think part of that coaching experience should be winning and losing and learning how to deal with both of them together, because you're never going to win all the games, you're never going to lose, but you're still going to continue to coach.
Oh, I love that. You just gave a definition of a successful season, and it doesn't, record sometimes doesn't show it.
Exactly.
Tell me more than, about, and I agree with you about the AU. There's very rare teams that grow up together, and have no turnaround. How many teams in the nation grew up from 7th grade playing travel basketball to 11, right? Very rare.
Right.
Maybe some are spaces, like smaller spaces with a small area when they play together, and it's just nowhere around. But some teams are like some grades for boys, especially. We were fortunate where 2023 team with, the twins and Jake Fegan and Mattis, and they played together more than 400 games since 7th grade.
Right.
So by the time they're seniors, it's like they just playing for each other. It's like a high school, team, and you can do so many more things with them. And then same with 2025 class. Last year we have 50 seniors, right? So, and those guys grew up together. So then it's different. The practices are different. The games are different. The mission is different. The hangouts are different. The teams sitting on the bench of other teams, and we're fortunate enough, with full package, that we have that camaraderie and family feel, and
like few others.
I appreciate that.
I do have an example of a rare transition from high school to AAU, and it goes back to there's a girl right now that works for the New Jersey Nets named Sarah Kustak. And when Sarah came here from Illinois, she grew up here. She went to Sandburg High School. They put a team in our state AAU tournament. It was basically her high school team, and she got a girl from Ottawa Marquette that came in and played. And they transitioned from a nice high school team to being our state champions in Illinois AAU. And they stayed together, and they played during the regular season and the postseason, and they grew together. And that's an opportunity. And they brought in other kids, and yet because they were like a family, they took that with them to develop a very good AAU team. And that's kind of a rarity, but again, they were able to take that, having played together, and take it to the next level. But you're right, by design, AAU teams that are
Yeah.
they're together a couple of years, maybe.
At
most of
best,
them
I
at
mean, every
best.
year you can have turnaround and
exactly.
people get recruited. And
Well, the team I had with Maggie Fontana and Lindsay Richards and all those kids, I was lucky. I had them as 14s, 15s, 16s, and 17s. Now, there were a couple of kids that moved in and out,
Yeah.
but the basic 10 or 12, 11 core stayed together for 4 years. So by the end of that, they were kind of like a school team, but that's a rarity. Right.
Yeah. Since we mentioned that, what is your most memorable transformation from team or person from your coaching career?
You mean as an individual?
Individual or as a team?
Oh, well, that's interesting. Probably my fourth team, the team I alluded to earlier at Regina that won 9 games in the regular season. And my point guard was suspended because she told our assistant coach that his offense belonged in the garbage can. And after a suspension.
Was she right?
Yeah, sort of. Anyway, it was actually that was the year I coached offense. Unfortunately, my son had the defense, so she had a point. But we came through that bump in the road, and we got together, and we made it all the way to the Sweet 16, where we lost to Johnsburg by 4 points, and at that level, and that team grew so much from halfway through the season to the end of the year. That's probably it, I would think.
Yeah, no, how cool is that? That's what you've been mentioned, that like losing or bump on the road makes you work harder for it. And it's one of your memorable seasons.
Yeah, they were.
And it's
special.
it didn't give you any banner or, maybe some book.
No, it gave me a medal and also gave me the hint that perhaps I should have someone else coach offense for my teams in the future. That helped.
But you see that again, like that losing helps you winning.
Absolutely.
Right?
No question. Yeah.
And that was one of your most memorable seasons.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Do you remember any players on that team?
Oh, I don't want to identify any of them, but I know a lot of them.
Yeah.
Kelly Fitzpatrick, Julia Stoner, who is, she actually just bought a house in my neighborhood, the McDonald's. Yeah, there's a few of them I remember.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
With that being said, what do you think is a good coach? Right. And because we always say, like, is that a guy who wins? Is that a person who connects with players? Is a developer? Can you be a good coach, with 0 and 30, but everybody's happy and camaraderie is there? Can you be, like you said, you still keep up with the players that you have forever? Is that the long-term relationship? Is that the good short-term relationship? What is a good coach for you?
I think a good coach is a coach that teaches the game, but positively affects the development of the players personally that they coach. Help them mentor losing, help them mentor disappointment and victory, at the same time trying to take them to put them all together to build a team, to teach them to be selfless, to teach them to be part of something greater than they are, and at the same time have the desire to win.
That's well put. Well, I'm gonna print it out somewhere.
Whatever. But that's what a good coach does. And again, I buy Girl Scout cookies from Diana Steplik over the internet. Maggie Fontana sends me pictures of her daughters playing basketball in upstate New York. I'm blessed to have had a number of Lindsay Richards still works at CDH. She works with one of my neighbors. Stay in contact with them as much as I can. They have their own lives, and you hope that some of them get into coaching because some of them had that ability to do that. But that's the gift.
That's pretty good. And that's why you are a good coach. Maybe since you're coaching so much, and I feel like players especially can run out of competitive juice. Like, let's say they playing too much, or they burning themselves out, or they it's a full year round, because it used to be multiple sports. Now it's like you're investing, or it's basketball. So let's just do basketball, spring, summer, fall, winter,
Right.
and it's a grueling. Do you think some people not making it where they can be because they just ran out of competitive juice, or just kind of burn out? And if you do think, what would your suggestion to be for those kids?
And it's realistic. It is reality. I mean, the pinnacle effect is so great with kids nowadays to get to the top. The competition is so tough. And the great players are playing 12 months a year. I ask them to step back and take a look at why they're doing it. Are you doing it for a scholarship? Are you doing it for mom and dad? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for the love of the game? Once you identify that, when things are tough, try to go back to that point as to why you're doing it. Understand that that's going to be the plane that maybe will bring you over your fatigue and get you through the high spots. Me telling you to do it, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Somebody else telling you to do it, seeing it on a TV commercial, I want to be like Mike, that's not going to do it.
Right.
What's going to do it is in your heart, realizing and re-identifying why you did it in the first place.
Yeah, it's an internal versus external,
Exactly.
Motivation. Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot. What about coaching? Because again, like I mentioned it, how I love that you did not lose that competitive juice in coaching after 30 years of it. And some coaches you can see get burned out, or they want to only coach elite players. It's easier to coach a Division I athlete, let's say, right? How do you do that? How do you keep being feet on the ground and just be excited, I guess, to coach a 5th grade girl who you can actually impact life probably more than any Division I athlete you can?
Good question. I think it again comes back to the motivational reason as to why are you doing it. I mean, you don't, for the most part, we don't coach for the money. I mean, we're not $500,000 or $1 million coaches, so that's out the window.
Right.
So now you're looking at, okay, again, I go back to the roots. Why are you're coaching? Because you love it. You want to see kids get better. And so you need that. You're going to draw your energy vicariously from the kids you're coaching. When they get better, when they do that pumps you up. That's your energy. When you see a team get better and keeping losing in perspective, you didn't get into it to go 82-0. It's not going to happen. You didn't get into it to go 0-82 either, but you got into it because you love it, and keep the motivation strain going by keeping your successes and failures small.
Right.
They're not your life. They're only a moment of your day.
Yeah. I hope those 6th graders don't play 82 games in the season.
No. We limited them this year to 18. No, I didn't think they had that many. We had, I think we had 14. And they were dying.
You were talking about NBA, but
I was talking NBA. But a college kid who plays 30 games in a season,
or high school,
a high school game. But now the college games are 40 games now, 35 and 5.
Yeah, and
winning.
Playoff a lot too. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But no, you just keep the wins and losses small, and keep the goals in front of you as to why you got in front of it. Yeah. Don't let no highs and lows.
Yeah, no, that's that's what they say. It's either goal oriented, process oriented. And then what is your goal? Because if you're process oriented, you can win season without having a 9 and 20.
That's a great point. Teach it and the process. That's a really good way to look at it. I like that. Again, you're teaching, you're helping and developing. Love the process. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way, but yes.
All great coaches actually would say, even NBA coaches, they coach as hard a 6th grade kid on a playground they were just driving by versus, the Michael Jordan. Right. So all great coaches always mention that. And I feel like those, you can see love, pouring through them. And it's about kids. It's about making them better people. And that's I feel like coaching is all about, especially in the youth level.
Right. And you can deliver the messages in different tones and different timbres.
Right.
It's like, telling a 6th grade girl about a turnover is a little bit different than telling a high school boy about a turnover. But you make it instructive, don't make it demeaning, and you get the message across and move on.
Can you describe perfect basketball?
49-0.
Okay. That's fair.
To me, defense is a perfect basketball. When I watch a basketball game, the thing I look for is, are they defending? How are they defending?
Yeah.
To me, that's the game, because I teach my kids that defense can create offense, and so, and I teach my kids to take pride in their defense. The story I used to tell is that I can't remember of anybody telling their kids, Grandma, come and watch me take a charge at the game today. But it's like, no, come and watch me make a basket. So, and what to me, the game of basketball is when I see a really great cohesive defensive team that's able to capitalize offensively as well.
Yeah, love it. I do think defense is a tool, right? I always kind of joke that you can't win the game 0-0.
Yeah.
But
True.
you said defensively you create offense,
right?
If you pressure the ball at the half court and they lose it, or somebody in the passing lane, it's a pretty much wide open layup. So again, I kind of joke that like, hey, as far as I know, you have to score more points than the other team to win it. That's like 100% of the time.
Yeah, it's true.
But again, I do believe in defense impacting that.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I love that your perfect basketball start from defensive end, because for me personally, or I would say most coaches, the first thing you think perfect basketball is like, oh, the ball movement, the cohesiveness on offense, the shot making, like you say, 49-0.
Right.
You got to score 49 points somehow. Right. So, but that's interesting, and I can see why you're defensive coordinator. Like your mindset is defensively.
I like to think that way with my kids. And again, to me, the whole NCAA boys tournament that just went on, the last 3 defensive possessions by the University of Florida against Houston were just absolutely lockdown stuff.
Right.
I mean, just didn't switch, just got into it, and that wins the games for I like Florida. I like what Golden does with his kids, how he motivates them. But to me, that's my perfect game. Pitching a shutout. It's never going to happen.
And Houston too. Houston always was defense, and they wheeled their through.
Their interior defense at the start of that game was, I think, blocking everything. They were great around the rim,
and they were pushing around a little bit.
They were just physically and Florida made an adjustment, which helped a little bit. But to me, that's the way the game flows. For me, a good defensive game, and I can get some, because I always, like on a high school level, I tell coaches, if you're holding your opponent on the 40s, you should win. That's just the way I look at it. That was the number 40 I put on the floor. 40. Dylan and I talk about that. 40. Collegiate level. You're holding anybody generally now under 60, but you should win.
Coach Dylan probably mentioned too to you, in Carmel we have a goal. If we would have 2 single-digit defensive quarters, that we would win the game. So we won every game by 1.
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're going to be in that 40-point range somewhere, and then you should win the game.
Yeah. No, I can see that. You know what? Since we're talking about this, how do you measure something? How do you measure success? How do you measure maybe in games? Do you have anything? Some people do kills, some people do deflections, some people assist to turnover ratio. What are your thoughts?
The 3 things that I teach with my kids who work on, number 1 is touches. I want to know how many times you're going to touch the ball. Number 2 is in a situational man-to-man, how many turns I get. How many times am I able to turn the ball handler on the dribble? And number 3 is how many times am I on the floor? Am I battling for loose balls? That's what I know that I'm putting the maximum effort out. But I love turns in the backcourt off the dribble. A lot, and I want my hands in the passing lane every time I can.
And do you measure those?
Yeah, we chart them.
Okay,
we chart them.
Give me a good number for the game?
For touches, 20.
So is that offensively, right? So
no, that's defensive deflections. How many times am I catching the ball in the passing lane? How many times am I doing that? And so,
So it's a deflection, pretty much.
deflection.
Right? Okay.
So it just not enough. You don't even have to. It doesn't have to be a turnover. It's just a touching the ball. You got your hand in the passing lane. You're making contact.
Or somebody picked it up and you
exactly.
kinda
I've got my
smacked
hand on
it,
the
right?
ball. Yeah, number one. And we do chart that.
And my bad. Let me interrupt you. It's 20 for high school, 32-minute game,
Yes,
or
yes, for high school. For college, it's a little bit higher.
Okay.
Our goal is 30. The game is longer. I don't think we hit it but twice last year, but
yeah, let's not talk about
no,
that. I'll save you.
What
No about turns.
Anyway, times on the floor. Yeah, I just want to know, and that could be 3 in a game, or it could be 10 in a game, depending upon how many opportunities we didn't. I'm going to chart more how many times we didn't get on the floors and how many times we did.
Okay.
And
What about turns?
turns I have a goal of a game, but it depends on how the team works. If they run a 2-guard front, pass the ball. If it's a single guard up by itself,
Mhm.
I want 15 or 20 a game at least. And that's easy to do. You can get 4 or 5 into possession
Right.
if you can dominate, get your head over the ball, and influence where it's going.
That's I never heard about turns.
To me, and again, in a shot clock situation like the girls' game, I'm eating up clock.
Right.
If I'm doing that, I'm making her
Right.
worry. What my defensive philosophy for my guards is I want to make sure that the girl is more worried about keeping her dribble than she is about setting up her offense. That's my concern. Make her worry about keeping the ball, not worry about where it's going to go.
Anything you would like to imply, and it may be hard to count or trace?
Well, we don't do it a lot, but I would like to start 50-50 balls that we don't get, because that's a huge piece.
Give me an example.
The ball bounces between a girl's legs, and they don't get the ball. We don't follow the ball to the corner. We assume it's going out of bounds, and it doesn't. The other team beats us to it. To me, that's all hustle stuff. That's I'm going to judge my hustle is by how many 50-50s we don't get to. We need to be on everything, and that comes from seeing the ball. That a lot of that comes from court awareness.
How many of those per game do you think?
Oh, I don't know. We had a couple games this year. I had one game this year where we lost 6 baskets because of it.
So it's not
baskets.
that, I would say, depending on game,
maybe 3,
under
2 or
50.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
you just remember the ones that
the
cost
ones
you.
where the ball bounces. I had
Yeah.
one that hit the girl in the head, and I guess the girl grabbed it and put it in. I
Right.
still don't know how that happened, but
It happens.
yes,
You just
it does.
remember those that didn't get to
She
your way.
remembered it too. Yeah, I guarantee you, she remembered it. And a knot on her head.
Okay, with that being said, I know you watch you said you watch a lot of films. I know Coach Dillon told me these stories how you pull out the VHS, and
Yeah, some of them are grainy.
that's
but they're
great.
still
You know,
there.
I love it. When you watch the film, what do you watch for? What do you analyze? What are your what do your eyes kind of stick to?
On an individual basis, again, I want to know if my player is doing what they're supposed to do. Are they close enough to the ball to affect the flow of the game?
We're talking about defense right now.
Yeah,
or?
defense.
Okay.
Offensively, I need to know what we're doing. If we're standing around, if we're bunched up, one of the things I've learned from working with you guys is spacing. Floor spacing.
Yeah.
And I've gone over that with Lauren again. And I know that the Concordia staff is changing their offense more to a pattern off of what you and Steve run versus what we've run before. Because spacing is the key. When kids are too close together, things just do not happen.
Yeah.
Defensively, I look for my kids as to where they are both on and off the ball. I will take a tape from a pullback and I'll freeze it. And then I'll say, okay, are you where you belong? Why are you not here? Why are you not at the helpline? Or are you at the helpline? Are you at the true helpline? Are you at a modified like we put in today because the team shoots threes? So we're using a modified helpline. So that's the stuff we would look for in film. And on individuals, I want to know, are they getting their head over the ball? Are they low enough? Are they turning the ball? Are they doing what they're supposed to do to occupy that space?
So you more concentrate on your team, what they're doing and what they're not doing than others, right?
No, when I scout, and I do scout for other people too, the first thing I scout is the team I'm there for. What are they doing? Don't worry about my opponent.
Like a just pattern, or
it's just a pattern. How are we handling the game that's going on right now? Are we playing within ourselves? Are we doing what we normally do? If we're not, then we have a problem. Okay. And then we can worry. Because to me, I always look at it preparing for any opponent is, are we the best at what we can be at what we're supposed to do? We'll make adjustments. A good coach, you do it. I've seen you do it. They do it. Ignatius did it. You make adjustments during the game. To me, coaching is about adjustments. Everybody goes into the game with a good working plan, but at the coach that adjusts best to what's going on with their team is the one that's going to be successful. Because your scheme can be great, but it's going to have to change if it's not working. And so how do you make that adjustment?
Yeah. What are you studying right now? What are you trying to learn now for, future? And maybe have you been working on something excited?
The offense that I learned from watching you guys, the 5 out, balance away from the ball, spread the floor, taking away from a lot of ball screens, taking away from action, away from the ball. That's probably, again, me and offense, it's kind of like oil and water, but I'm learning that off the ball offensively is just as important as it is on the ball. And that's the biggest thing I've learned in the last year or two. And defensively, I'm always looking for new things to teach, new ways to approach things. Again, and like we were talking to Steve last night about in a 5 out situation of active button-up denial on the help, not down the line.
Like the first pass denial?
Yeah, you're on it. And then how do we handle the help line? Okay, the ball goes to a side 3-point shooter. We use a staggered help line. The girl at the top, for instance, on the elbow shooter will use a modified help line, where the girl on the base will use a true help line. So staggering the help lines in order to be more effective. Yeah,
you kind of maybe like a peel switch if it's
yeah,
almost like a zone up.
Yes,
I see it.
It's what I'm trying. That's some of the stuff I'm working on now, because again, a lot of the teams now with 5 outs, back cuts are very important. You don't have to worry so much about screen, but you have to defend the back cut. It's more difficult to defend when you're in traditional step down and step off. So what is the key to that, though? The key to that is you must stop the ball handler first. That puts singular activity on the defender of the ball handler. Then you can deny those back cuts if you're in a lockup on the side, rather than down and off. So
a few years ago, I was did a little research about the teams who deny that first pass, right? So it's hard to initiate offense, and it takes you off, especially in college with a shot clock.
Yep.
And I found out that a lot of teams don't play that way the whole game, and it's just the calls for sometimes.
Yes,
because it's hard to do, like you said. There's opens up some gaps.
Yep.
But it does disrupt offense at some point, and good offense, like you said, adjust fast enough. But you can eat up few possessions and few shot clocks.
That's what we talked about. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks about lockdown and then passive, active and passive denial. So active denial is a bellow up. Passive denial. So we're going to switch that up, and we're going to try to, again, because my idea of this defense is I own that possession. I want to dominate that possession. And again, with the shot clock coming in, the more I can do that, the more effective I'm going to be.
That's and a few years ago, I had a player who played for Grinnell. It's a fun,
90
full court, right? So, but what I learned a lot from them, they would have a same press, but they have different calls for different things.
Okay.
So you can have a same press, but you say it can be passive, it can be aggressive, it can deny middle, it can deny wings, and they had all those different calls for all the different same press. So then we realized that sometimes instead of switching defenses completely, you switch pace of defense and it throw pace away, like pace of offense off, and you just kind of mentioned it.
It's about eating time.
Yes.
Is what it's about. It's about eating time. And how do I do that?
Oh, that's pretty good. What do you think coming to basketball new, maybe dramatic changes in the future? Do you see it?
Definitely on the high school level, the shot clock is going to be a huge change. When I ran AAU, I was the AAU chairman for 20 years here in Illinois for girls, and I was the first tournament in the Midwest to institute a shot clock, and I had it for my high school age teams going back a number of years. And strangely enough, we charted it. we averaged less than 2 shot clock violations per game.
Mhm.
But the shooting percentages went right down through the floor because
Yeah.
teams get to the end of it and then you're just throwing
Yeah.
stuff up. But
Yeah.
to me, from the overall scheme, that's the biggest change that's going to come in. Again, I don't want to be overly laudatory, but I think on an individual basis, the things that full package is teaching offensively, the continual development of the offensive skill of the offensive player. There's only so many things the defensive coach can do. I mean, they can yell, you can say, get in better shape. Okay, that's a big thing. Okay, don't drink so many Cokes. Okay, that's a good thing. But defensively, individually, there's only so many things that a player can do. I mean, as I said, I teach, active feet. When Asya, that's at Maine South, played for us, I taught her a foot tap. I wanted her to move her lead foot constantly so that the offensive player, so she was constantly in motion, because I believe that defense uses the law of physics. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion, where objects at rest tend to stay at rest. So if you're moving your feet, you're going to be a more active defender. But the things that you guys are teaching, and then offenses are always coming up with new schemes.
Yeah.
Defensively, the schemes are the same. 3-2 matchup, 3-2. I mean, if you want to teach the amoeba, and I never did learn how to teach that.
Yeah.
Those are all pretty much the same. You're going to change it a little bit by the length and the athleticism of the athletes, but the basic skills are going to be the same.
Yeah. Like,
the biggest thing,
jumping on a pass or cementing the ball and communication, like it's all
the same
pillars
stuff
from when it started.
Exactly right. Move while the ball's in the air. The number one problem I think, Coach, that teams have defensively is post-possession defense. They defend after the ball is caught, while they don't defend while the ball's in the air, and that's the key.
Yeah,
you have to move while the
that's funny. I recently, for our 17 and 16, that's exactly what we've been talking. Where anticipation, and while the ball's in the air, good team moves while the ball's in the air.
Correct.
And average team stick, and then when the ball lands, that's when they move. And then you're late. And it creates so many closeouts and open shots. No matter, unless you're a freak athlete, which have a lot of those, right?
Not very many, but no, that's the biggest thing with defense is to be
anticipate where the ball lands.
Be a student too. Be a student of the game. And I teach. I go into a gym. I'll throw a ball to a girl, and I'll say, catch the ball. I said, was she right-handed or left-handed? Well, I don't know. I said, she told you a story. She's got the ball in her right hand. She's already told you a story. So going into this, think, see.
Oh, they got like right, left, and start pivoting with left.
Picture. That's what you do.
They probably lefty most likely.
Take a picture. Exactly. Become a student of what they're doing. Pay attention. Watch an offense. Some teams, I go over this, I talk to Dylan. I say, I noticed teams all right-handed. Go to the right hand. That's what hurt Houston in the last 3 possessions against Florida. Their offense always ran to the right.
Preaching to the choir. Force them left.
Ran to the right. That offense ran to the right every time.
That's right. Tell me this, and you kind of mentioned like that space and ball movement. And I ultimately was a believer that if the ball moves and everybody moves, it's great. However, lately, and I kind of realized that, let's say I have 2 really good playmakers and 3, let's say, role guys. Like the ball movement is not always good in that scenario, because when the ball movements go to our playmakers, it's good. But when we go away from them, it's not good.
Right.
So same with spacing, how we all like, if you're standing, you're wrong. But now I feel like if you're a really good shooter and you can hold the space and spot, and you'll help defender overactive, you can hold that spot because your teammates know that you're there.
Right.
And then the defender have to move more. Let's say instead of cutting where he can bump you, if you just stay in the corner while the offense develop, like you're standing, but you spacing,
Right.
So what do you think about those? Because again, I felt like we were going away from that. And then now I realize that at some situation, it's a part of it, like not moving the ball or not moving without the ball.
I think you have to look at it again situationally as depend on who, I call them hot and cold, who's your hot, who's your cold. Okay.
Could you elaborate on that?
I always teach my kids defensively to again be on the floor, and if you have a dynamic player, I'm going to respect every position that they're at when on the floor. And some teams will do it. They'll just freeze them. They'll just stand them, stay there, whatever, because they know when the time's going to come, they're going to do what they need to do. I teach my kids to be active on when they have to be, and that's a good point you bring up. You don't always have to move, particularly on defense.
Right.
You can be, I don't call it taking time off, but you can realistically, because if you have become and you've learned where the ball is going to go under most circumstances. There was one of the games we watched, Marian Catholic's girls. There was one girl who would only shoot the ball in the corner. Everywhere else on the floor, we didn't have to worry about her. But when she went to that corner, she was hot. That's who we had to guard.
Right.
But you can get off of her until that point in time. So I know part of that comes from just knowing the game itself, knowing what the flow of the game is and who the hot players are and who they're not, and understanding that a hot player is going to have opportunities created for them, whether they're passive by just standing where they're at or they're moving. Eventually the ball is going to gravitate back to that point. So how do you deal with that?
It sounds like a game, hot and cold.
Yeah.
But again, you see it through lens of defense.
That's how I look at it.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm not going to change you. That's okay. Just personally, in my opinion, I'm sure you're going to disagree by a lot. It's better to win 101 to 99 than 21 to 19.
I had to turn and look at that one for a second.
I got you. Because more people scoring, more people have fun who actually kind of play defense. But from the defensive point of view, you want to crush their soul, and you don't want them to score anything.
We call inflicting our will. That's what we talk about. That's
right.
what we talk about. Change the game, inflicting your will on the offense.
Right.
And I suppose from the standpoint, your 100 to 99 games a lot more, or 100 to 1 games a lot more fun than mine 49
for
to
players,
nothing.
right? For players,
right. Exactly. But I also believe in the end the players want to win too. So if the defense will get them to where they are, they're okay with it. But and again, I realize that going back to grandma coming to watch you take a charge versus make a three. You have to, it's defenses in here. You have to want to do it. You have to take the small rewards on it, because it doesn't show up on the scoreboard.
No,
it shows up in your team.
That we agree. Like I said, it's a tool for you to get there, and you need to know how to use the tool.
Yeah.
Is there something we not talking about basketball, but it's big, or maybe overlooking?
No, I just think that I think we need to keep in mind that the kids of today are going through things that you and I'm way older than you, never imagined. And I think when we deal with our kids these days, we need to take a step back and realize that the stimuli around them, the things that are affecting them, are far greater than we can ever imagine. My wife passed away 11 years ago, and my daughter left me a grandson to raise, and Jonathan is the love of my life. He's a great kid, drives me crazy. He's taught me about Snapchat and Instagram and a lot of things I also didn't need to know at age 72. But one of the things I've learned from being around them and being around young people is that their lives are incredibly complex. And so when we deal with them, I think sometimes we need to try to take a step back and realize what's going on in their lives. You can't sacrifice the discipline, and sometimes circumstance makes us do that on the court or off the court, but realize the fact that their lives are a lot more complex than ours, and maybe we need to take a step back and evaluate how we approach them with the discipline and the things that we need to affect them. We need to guide them differently than you and I were.
Yeah. I believe that. I kind of recently mentioned too that they got all the information in their fingertips, and the excess of information, all this around. that we had to go to library, and we're probably not going to find it, right?
Right.
Like later, I have to find DVD about training, and I got some bootleg DVDs like of
Right.
better basketball with Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace and Larry
Oh,
Brown.
There's some names.
No,
Okay.
and then
There you go.
so then and I was already a player, and so then coaches, like you said, player development was a chair and an elbow,
Yep.
and unfortunately, there's still people do that.
Well, there are still,
Right.
and I'm sure it's part of it, but it's
Right.
not. Back then, it was either that, okay, and then give me 3 suicides, and that was what we were
Right.
doing.
Like a player do. Yeah, you got better today.
Not that way now.
Tell me this: how do you not over-inform players? How do you make them play freely without overthinking? How do you? Is there any advice or suggestion on that? Because you mentioned it, how it's difficult to to be a teenager now.
I think you have to be fortunate in the fact that you have kids that can take the game back to the basics. It's still a game of pass and cut and condition and teamwork and again, it goes back to and I take this word from a young lady that I coach with right now, that I teach the kids to take away the noise, take away the stuff on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that the game is still the game. It's still the game as it was 30 years ago. It's a little bit more complex in some of the things that are taught, but it's still making baskets and running offenses and discipline and being in shape. And all those things haven't changed. And so you hope that you can get a group of kids who will understand that all the rest of the stuff is out there. Here in our team with us, it's still the same game it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You got to score, you got to defend, you got to play like a team. And that's what I try to do. I mean, it's not always going to work. Again, the complexities of their lives will creep into it when it comes to disciplining them or telling them, not so much discipline. I guess discipline's the word, but well, your shot's off. Well, no, my shot coach and my shot coach's uncle and his cousin all told me my shot's perfect. Well,
right.
But hon, it's not going in the basket. So somebody's telling you something wrong here.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the basics and, palm on the ball and see what we can do.
What would your advice to be then to kids nowadays who start playing?
Some simple things. The game, the number one thing that they needs to work on is ball handling. I don't care whether you're 6'11" or 2'11", you have to dribble. So if I have a young person, and I have a grandson who's 6, he's going to be a big kid. He's left-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about basketball and he comes to Papa's house, we don't worry about shooting. We worry about dribbling. We worry about just handling the ball. I would also tell them that although they're young, they need to get their body into the best shape that it can be in. And just because they don't have a pot belly or they don't, they need to work hard at getting themselves into shape. And the third thing is that if they really, really are interested, don't waste time. I tell kids that, you can get back your hair if you lose it, your wallet, your girlfriend, but you never get back the time you lose. And so if you're really into it, put the time in. It'll reward you.
Yeah, I hear you. What about, so you kind of talking about this development. What about mental part of it? How can you help yourself or kids to become mentally tougher?
Well, again, it's the same thing. It's like their schoolwork. I tell them, look, how do you get a good grade in school? You study at it. It doesn't come to you naturally. So with basketball, you're going to toughen yourself up because you're going to watch the game. First of all, what I tell kids, they need to be students of the game. Mm-hmm. Be surprised how many of these kids never watch a basketball game.
Oh, a full game.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. They walk in, they watch it. They go on ESPN, they watch the top 10 plays of the game. They're out. Right. That's it. Mm-hmm. And not everybody can, play like a pro player. So to toughen themselves up, teach themselves to understand that every shot that they miss is not a failure. It's just part of their development. Number one. Number two, work hard and accept the fact that you're as you grow, you'll get better. And if you don't, don't put the time in, you don't. And above all, just understand that it's like everything else in life. It's going to have ups and downs, but if you still love it, that's going to be the key. Love of what you're doing will bring you through.
I love that advice. What are the maybe books that you suggest to kids or coaches to read?
I really don't have a lot of them. I honestly don't. I mean, I just think that
You study basketball by watching basketball.
I do. Yeah. And there's books that you can buy. I know that Mike Krzyzewski's got a couple books out there and whatnot. I never read them. And that's why, whatever my coaching is what it is. I didn't read the books, but I just become a student of it. And in that process, if you find a book that, maybe if you're going to read a book, you want to give a book that gives you how you become mentally strong, how you turn
about resilience.
Yes, about resiliency, how you bounce back. If that would be anything, because the game itself, you're going to, read all these teaching little.
Yeah, Reagan mentioned a book called The Grit, and I guess it's a really good book about. I'm behind it. I didn't read it yet,
right?
But when I do, I'll give it to you, and you can read it.
Yeah,
maybe it's a good book.
Yeah.
I have a theory that, like you said, you grew up a little bit earlier, right? I grew up, I'm kind of older than most of the coaches that we are mentoring and helping. I have this theory about busy playground. And for you to survive a busy playground, you got to play hard. You got to play through your best players. You got to be picked. You got to play defense. You got to know how to play through your best players on offense. You got to be resilient, right? You got to be understanding how to play outside, through weather, how to be picked. So there's a lot of things that taught us how to be tougher players, how to be better players without any coaching. And nowadays, kids missing opportunities.
Right.
I don't know if you just have 10 kids in a gym and they all have 10 basketballs, they're just going to shoot on different baskets.
Right.
Where I'm sure if me and you have 10 people in the gym, 5 minutes later, it's a pickup with a nose bleeding and lip poked, and it's a battle, right?
Yep.
And how do you create that now, or maybe you cannot anymore? And again, I feel like a lot of kids missing that opportunity, especially the area that we coach and live, where you missing those little coaching moments where you realize them and nobody told you. And it kind of, we talk about from internal process, because if somebody tell you, you're probably not going to listen, right? So what are your suggestions with that?
I think kids become singular in their practices. They want to go out in the driveway and make 50 free throws, that's all well and good, but you need to play. And I would encourage every kid that I talk to put those skills to a test as often as they can. Find a game, find an environment, find older kids, find anyone that you can play with. Find a benefit. If you're playing with younger kids, then be a leader. Be a leader. Make those younger kids around you better. If you're playing with kids that are better than you, then bust your butt, get better, work in with that system. But you have to play. And that's the biggest thing I think that's come in. One of the bigger things, and you asked this question earlier about one of the changes that's come in. I think in the last 15 or 20 years, 15 years, the notion that practice makes you better should be supplanted by practice with gameplay makes you better. Because it's like anything else you do. If you develop a skill, but you don't have a chance to see it work and refine it, it's just a skill that you possess that's going to be limited by what you do. But now go play against other players who are going to help you become better. That's what you need to do. I would tell kids to practice for certain, but play as often as you can.
Two things to that. I usually say the best way to learn how to play basketball is to play basketball. And again, in a free environment, right? Where you're not getting coached, when you have to figure it out on your own. And then the other thing with that, it's a skill application versus skill. And a lot of players have skill,
but they don't.
And I always kind of joke like, hey, you can be very skilled. There's this football midhead who comes in who can only go right.
Right.
But he will go right. He will make layups because he can apply his skills better. Right. So you can be as skilled as you can, which a lot of players are right now.
Exactly.
But you can't apply it because you don't lift, or you don't know when to use it, or you're driving in traffic,
or you're afraid to use it, and you haven't refined it to the point where you're afraid to overcome your fear of failure to use it.
That's one of the reasons. I love that. Yeah. Tell me, if there's any season you can relive, what would it be? Because you already kind of mentioned that 9 game in Regina. Are there any other seasons where you would leave it again?
I might have, the year we went downstate at Regina, I might have coached one game a little bit differently than I did. I love the kids. It was a great experience. We got a chance to go down there, but no, you know what? I'm going to think about that a little bit differently. No, I guess so. I would have coached that one game differently, and I think I would have done my kids a better justice had I done that. We're playing Naperville Central in the state semifinal game. Candace Parker's on the bench with 1 minute and 18 seconds to go. And rather than just playing out the clock and looking for a shot, I got the idea that I was going to turn on a full court press, which I had not used the whole game. Mm-hmm. And they proceeded to outscore us 6-0 in the last minute of the game. And we went in at half down 12, and we lost by 2. So I would rethink that, maybe, second guessing that. But the overall season, I wouldn't have changed that. As a season, you know what, Coach? I don't know if I would have changed any of them. I mean, every one of them, the games that, this is going to sound corny, but the teams that won 6-7 games, my daughter was on one of them at Regina. I got to coach my daughter, and it was great. My 6th grade girls losing 13-12 in the championship game. Yeah. I wouldn't change it any other way because we got there. We were the 8th seed. Right. Nobody wanted it. We were the last team to make it in, and we played well. And I don't know if I would change any of them. That's
pretty cool. What about did you watch those? Like, did you watch as many times your losses as your wins?
You mean in replay?
Did you ever watch that game in replay?
Coach, I very seldom watch any of them at all. I mean, I'll watch my grainy VHS tapes to show my grandsons that, there was once Papa was on TV and looking like a goof. And sometimes I'll pick them up, like Steve asked me to look up a 2-1-2 press I had.
Yeah, I remember Dylan. That's what he mentioned.
Looking at that, But no, I really don't. I had the opportunity to be in the booth color commentator for the girls' IHSA tournament one year, and sometimes they put that on to seem like a goof I was and how many stupid questions I asked and answered. And then
you got to fill in time with something.
I can't pick on Holly Rowe anymore for some bad questions, but no, I really don't. I don't dwell on games that won or lost. Again, I guess I maybe look for the silver lining in just about all of them.
Do you ever nervous or worry about something before games or seasons?
Every time, every game, I'm nervous.
What are the main things that you worry about? I guess
that I don't want to do anything that will over or undercoach my kids. I worry about keeping them focused and realizing that I'm there to do the best job I can. And overnight, I didn't become a terrible coach, or I didn't become all overnight. I'm still the same guy I have and don't change. But I get nervous before every game.
What are there any guidance or maybe internal words you tell yourself to not overcoach and undercoach? Because we all can blow up for miss layup, and we always can say, "Man, make a layup."
We all do that.
Well, what does that mean?
No,
right?
Yeah.
So,
what's a ref? Call them both ways. Come on, stuff like that. No,
it's 7-1 fouls.
Exactly. No,
all right. So tell me, are there any inside you that like, hey, that's not the right time, or do you have that in you? Or
I will remind myself that if I'm going to say something out loud, it needs to be positive. I can keep my negative comments in a lower tone. That I am.
Like you would coach personally,
yes,
negative, but you would coach
project
team logic.
positively.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. Oh, and that's always I like to think has been my mantra. I am a positive coach. I'm very loud.
Yeah.
People hear my voice, and I realize that. So I need to. If there's anything I remember about my coaching, it's just to keep the negatives calm and the positives outgoing.
Is there anything you write down when you coach?
I will make a note before a game occasionally if I'm, I'm going to prepare to win. If I'm looking at my opponent, I'll know what they do.
Like you would write down their plays, or
no, I'll just make who their best players are.
Okay.
In the grade school, 6th grade level. I mean, it's not like we're worried about anything that's really on the collegiate level. Yeah, we'll go scout it. We do it, and we have a scouting report that's 2.5 pages long. We'll talk about
but you're not
player.
gonna look at it during the game, right?
No.
Are there any notes that you look at during the game?
No, I have a pretty good memory, and I don't know if I would do it right anyway if I try to write it down off a book. But no, I don't. I try to prepare myself as much as I can before the game. My coaching style is one of change. I'd like to think that my strength might be game coaching. I make good adjustments. I keep my timeouts under control. Like the other day, we had a grade school with a full package. We had a game, and we were losing 12-0 to a team that was playing man to man. I took a timeout, and I sat the girls down, and I said, "You don't know me, but this is going to pain me. But we're going to go to a zone, girls. We're going to play 2-3 zone," and we won 33-31 because we make an in-game adjustment. To me, I'd like to think that might be my strength as a coach, is in-game adjustments. And I think I motivate my kids pretty well.
Do you switch defenses between when the other team called timeout?
Depending. I did it in this particular game when I took a timeout, but no, usually not. I mean, it depends on the venue. I mean, if you're a college team, when you got a lot of time, you can do that. A 6th grade game when the referee wants to go home and take his $45, you don't have a whole lot of time to do that. But no, I mean, you seize the opportunities as they are. Again, I'm a believer in using timeouts. I called one in our last game, full package girls, because they were tired. I said, just sit down and talk.
All right, tell me, is there anything else you want to mention or talk about?
This has been a blessing for me to be able to coach so many kids, to work with so many great coaches. Full package has been a renaissance for me. I had reached a point in my career when I wasn't actively coaching. And Steve approached me about coming to help, kind of rekindled my love of the game. I would mentor young coaches in looking to older coaches. An example, for instance, on the boys' side, Bennett Academy went downstate, won this year, and their assistant coach was John Bonk, who back in the 90s was an absolutely lockdown coach at Weber High School. He was a tremendous defensive coach. And he played a 2-2-1 press that I've actually emulated at times.
Okay.
St. Pat's goes downstate for the first time with Al Biancalana as an assistant coach there. I was blessed that in 2015, those were the two coaches that I went into the IBCA Hall of Fame with in my class. And I would mentor young coaches to seek out older coaches, to seek out those resources for them that can help them, because there's nothing that replaces experience. And older coach can have value. Us old guys, we have a little bit of a value.
It's called wisdom.
Yeah, it's called wisdom. And we can help with that. And again, I've been blessed to be able to make, to work with great young coaches, Reagan Carmichael, Lauren Martin, who I coach with at Concordia, coaches with her heart, so incredibly dedicated to her job. To, the coaches like Terry Rogers, to George Rosner, who coached at Streamwood for 30 years. I don't think he had a winning team, but twice. But he coached it because he loved it.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing for me. I mean, coached against coaches, Tommy Deneen and Stevenson, and Buffalo Grove, Frank Matucci back in the day. Great coach, Frank Zeff. Nobody ever knew Frank. Frank
Yeah.
had some of the greatest teams that nobody ever saw in girls basketball, but a great coach. So I've been blessed. And anybody that stays with this as long as you or I have, if they do, hopefully they'll be as blessed as I have been.
Yeah, thank you. We have a tradition that guests before you left you a question without knowing who you were going to be, and then we'll ask you to do the same. So the question was from Reagan: if you can trade places with any person, who would you trade with and why?
Do they have to be alive, or could they be dead?
You
I would trade
interpret it.
places with John Wayne, because I think he was absolutely the greatest actor. I loved his action films, and I wish I could have been John Wayne.
I love that. I'll get you a plastic gun. I love that. Can you leave the question for the next person without knowing who they are?
Sure. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, is there any sound?
All right.
That's my question.
Sounds good. We'll pass it on. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.